So my name is Mhairi Sutherland and I'm an artist based here in Derry, Londonderry, in the northwest of Ireland. And my work is in video and photography and drawing. So the work for the exhibition Genesis Lost, which is in Artlink at the moment, began a couple of years ago with a research project that I started looking at the military airfields around Lough Foyle. A lot of my work is concerned with military archaeologies and militarism in the wider sense, particularly where it kind of intersects with kind of civic and civil life, and the history of photography. And that those two areas, kind of militarism and photography, kind of connect and combine a lot more perhaps than people are aware of. And much of my research is about uncovering those kind of connections and that kind of synthesis between photography and militarism. There's three elements in the exhibition, and as you go in you see the back wall. There's a horizontal strip painting the back wall of a kind of deep cyan night sky blue, and there's a perfect circle in the middle where the film is projected, with the idea that it almost feels like you're looking through a hole in the wall, and it's a clear reference to the kind of the aperture and the lens of the camera, but also the idea of surveillance, of scoping, to make people aware that, particularly when you look at a big projected image, it feels kind of limitless, it kind of fills your vision. But if you narrow that down, all of a sudden you become much more aware of the gaze of the camera. And if you're aware of the gaze of the camera, you have to think to yourself, well, what's the intention of the person that's operating it? So hopefully all those things are at play in the work as well. And the colour of that strip on the wall, it touches on a couple of things. I work with cyanotype photography a lot. So I certainly wanted to make a connection between, even a formal connection between some of the materials and some of the colours and the forms between those three elements of the work. So it certainly does that, I hope, because it connects with the cyanotype images in the book and also the binding of the book. But there's another kind of connection that it makes for me. I don't know how obvious it is perhaps to a viewer, but the dome, the trainer dome themselves, they simulated a day and a night sky. And the way that they simulated a night sky was by having lights on the interior of the dome, and the lights were turned off to simulate a plane passing. So a trainee gunner was trying to aim at the film of a passing plane. But in terms of a night sky, obviously you can't see the projected film, so they turned off the lights in sequence so that whoever was doing the firing would think, oh, that's the passage of the airplane across the night sky, and they would kind of take aim. So that reference to the night sky and that colour is also within that shade of blue. Genesis Lost refers to the idea of the origins or the beginnings of certain technologies and certain kind of tools or ways of working. And the kind of mediums or tools that I kind of researched or selected for the exhibition all had a connection to the place where the trainer dome is located. So that's kind of Limavady area towards Coleraine, because much of the military airfields and the kind of the evidence of military archaeologies is still in those kind of locations. During World War II, a naval officer, when he was watching a Pathy newsreel, actually, this idea of how to improve the accuracy of firing for anti-aircraft gunners occurred to him. So to cut a long story short, he worked with Pathy and with Ektachrome. They created the films, and the engineering department of a branch of the Navy created the dome structure. And there was 40 odd of them built throughout the UK, and that's what they were designed to do. There was a film housing and a gun emplacement in the centre of the dome. The films were projected. They used a mirror kind of mechanism to project it back against the walls of the dome. And this was the very first time that an immersive photographic moving image environment had ever been created. But as such, The Trainer Dome and its kind of operations is the forerunner of virtual reality, of gaming technologies and of IMAX cinema. The film was projected as a silent film, but they created sound effects. And even when I was inside the dome, if you shout, it has this echo. If you whisper, you can hear it coming bouncing off the other wall. So I did want to make reference or explore the idea of sound within the overall work as well. So to create an audio that wasn't entirely naturalistic to the image, but to create a kind of tension between the sound that you hear when you're watching the film and what you see when you're watching. So slightly kind of discordant or slightly kind of out of place, so that you just think a little bit more about what is that relationship between the image that I'm looking at, this kind of occluded image, and the sound that I'm hearing. So the sound, there's three elements of sound within the film. There's an ambient sound, because I filmed just without a directional microphone. I just wanted the sound that was there, and you can hear dogs barking, you can hear children making a noise, or because it's quite close to some houses as well. And you can hear traffic kind of everywhere, but you can hear a little sound of traffic. I then went to an area quite close to where I live. So I recorded, spent a couple of very early mornings recording the dawn chorus, and that's what you hear at the beginning. But that's also, I was hoping to make a connection to the idea of different kinds of time within the work. A dawn chorus happens anew, it happens every morning. The drawings of the kind of Mesolithic tools and flints is a kind of a deep time. So I wanted to bounce off some of those ideas between different kinds of times. And the third kind of audio element within the film is a very kind volunteer, a musician that I know. He is humming the air of the Londonderry Air, which is an old folk tune, better known as, when you hear the words to it, better known as Danny Boy, and that's what he's humming. So it's the idea of that kind of human presence that I wanted to connect with. And looking at the Limavady area, even if you try to get away from it, there's no getting away from the fact that Londonderry Air and Danny Boy is the sound, is the human sound, vocal sound associated with that area. And I think the work in Genesis Lost, I find it personally really successful, because perhaps it was the time that I've spent doing the research. And when I say research, that's time spent in that landscape drawing, making cyanotype photographic prints, taking photographs, taking video. So I think it's a lot to do not just with the research, but the time that I spent, to the experience of spending time in that landscape. Because although my work is strongly research-led, sometimes that can make it seem, when I'm describing it, as though it's a bit cold, but it's not, because it's always kind of mediated by experience. And I think the longer time you have to do something, if that's the time you're supposed to spend, it can be really productive when it comes to creating an exhibition at the end, or kind of producing the work. And I suppose I had the luxury of a certain amount of time to think about how I wanted the work to be in the Artlink space, which I kind of know quite well also, and I think that was a great benefit when I was planning the work. And the work always has a kind of collaborative element, particularly this time in Genesis Lost, in connection with the book, which contains the analogue images, the black and white analogue images of the dome. It contains some notepad and sketchbook drawings that I made kind of on site. It contains the cyanotypes and kind of later drawings that I've made of eclipses. And there's a kind of haptic element to all of those kind of works as they run through the book. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't want them to exist as framed works. When someone looks at a book, they have to touch the pages. And to make darkroom prints sloshing about in the water, it's a very haptic process. And you can feel that in the prints. mean, they're fairly solid and substantial. We're so used to seeing photography on a screen. A photograph that's been developed in the darkroom has a certain kind of weight and quality, tactile quality to it. The same with the cyanotypes and the drawings. They're all done by hand. It sounds a bit kind of corny, but they're all kind of created by hand. And even to there's digital works obviously included within the book as well, because I wanted to show the whole kind of breadth of the research and the fact that different forms show different things about the work, and they show different things about the research. But I particularly wanted to combine them in a book because I want people to kind of touch those things as they're kind of moving through the book. I didn't want them to be behind a frame or glass. So hopefully when a viewer's looking through the book, you do have a different relationship obviously to a book than you do to a frame. The distance has been collapsed. So that was important in the choice of one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of create a book of the work as well. And I think because of the support of Artlink, just everybody kind of being so helpful, and also a combination of my knowing the space and wanting to say something about that relationship or respond to the space, I think that also gave me the confidence to say I'm really going to push this and try for something which I've done nothing like before.